So hi and welcome to another Tech Tuesday. Today we're going to take a look at this Finalmouse, the Ultralight Sunset. So if you're not familiar with my Tech Tuesdays, I go through a load of gaming peripherals and other technologies that are more at the premium. I do a Thrift Thursday as well, so keep a lookout for that one and subscribe. But today we're going to be going through a few tests on this to do with jitter testing, slam testing. Going to be looking at the weight of this mouse, how much force there is to press the buttons, all kinds of really good detail here. So stick around so you can get all the information that you need before you buy one of these mice. Now, buying one of these mice was relatively easy at the start. They came in at $89, but they sold out really fast. And now I think they've also discontinued now, and they're around $200 on the internet. So they are a little bit tricky to get hold of. But today we're going to hopefully find out whether it's still worth buying one. I'm not sure it is at $200. So starting off here with the build quality. Well, this mouse is USP is making it very light. And you can see it's got these nice jawed honeycomb effect here. But overall, the product build quality here is very good. You'd expect it to have lost some rigidity here, but it doesn't. It still maintains that, and it's still a very, very solid mouse given the amount of plastic that's been removed. I did expect to feel the honeycomb in the palm of my hand when I was gaming, and I thought it might irritate me, but overall, playing with the ended amount of hours here on Call of Duty, especially at the moment, I found that this mouse isn't creating me any other issues than any other normal mouse would do in terms of rubbing on my hand or even just being uncomfortable. Now the mouse itself comes with 4 pads on the base. These can be changed out, and I advise you probably do to give it a little bit more of a slicker glide. Although the standard ones here I found to be very good on a G640 mouse mat that I'm using in cloth. The plastics that they use, like I said, they're using a rubber coating on the orange Sunset here that is very, very bright. You certainly don't miss this mouse. And then you've got a standard plastic, although slightly textured on the sides here, although there's no rubber on this mouse. So the wear on this mouse with the build quality, I think the mouse shell itself is going to hold up, but I do feel the coating is going to wear out. And I also think it's going to get dirty really, really fast here. So the scroll wheel's got a nice rubber insert on it. It's not too notched. And again, it's nice and soft. It's not too much of a hard plastic as well. So it's certainly a nice feel on your finger there. So the shape of this mouse is even. It's identically shaped across the whole right and left side. The buttons though are on the left-hand side, therefore it makes it a right-handed mouse. Though for a left-handed person, if you don't mind the buttons and they don't get in the way, say if you're pressing them, your little finger perhaps, then you could use it as a left-handed mouse as well. I'd put this mouse in the medium to large category. It certainly isn't a small mouse here. And overall, I did find this mouse a little bit big for my hand. I certainly found it hard to reach the front thumb button. And I felt like my hand was slightly stretched using this mouse. So if your hand's similar size to mine, you might find it a little bit large. But it all comes down to personal preference. For me, I think this mouse is a little bit large for me. So the sensor here is the 3360 sensor. It's been around a while. It's a very reliable sensor. It has a DPI switch on the top here that's prefixed to 400, 800, 1600 and 3200. Would have been nice to have a bit more flexibility here with the software. So overall, you can only have 4 DPI settings, although I play at 400 anyway, so I'm pretty sure most people will find a DPI setting that they can use and then adjust it in the game to make it a little bit more refined to the right sensitivities. One of the drawbacks on this mouse is that it only has a 500 Hertz pull rate. Now this is not necessarily an issue for most people, but if you're definitely using a top end 240 Hertz gaming monitor, you can run a mouse that runs at 1000 Hertz, so this potentially isn't the mouse for you. So moving on to the sensor tests here, where we've done jitter, we've done angle, we've done ripple, we've done square snaps, we've done lift-off tests, to try and give it an idea of how this sensor performs. And you can see here that, to be fair, it runs really, really well on a cloth G640, as I've been saying, and I've been using a Razer Scarab for the hard surface, and I found that, to be fair, it was reliable. I found it was very good on a hard surface at 400 DPI, which is unusual for me. I normally find it a little bit more jittery. I did find at 1600 DPI that the mouse became too jittery for me, but I wouldn't run it at this DPI anyway. On the slam test here in Call of Duty 4, I found no issues, the mouse didn't spin out, it was very, very reliable, it always came back and tracked at the same position where you'd expect it to, so a good sensor here is expected. So the scroll wheel here is one of the fattest I've had on any mouse. It comes in at 9.8mm thick. It's a bit of a monster. I found it kind of makes the mouse left and right buttons a little bit too far apart for me. I find it a bit more like a death adder, although you've probably even more further apart in your hand. And I would like to have seen a thinner scroll wheel here and a slightly narrower front. That would be my personal preference here, but you're certainly not going to miss this scroll wheel. It's got a very, very nice, subtle tactile response when you're going through the notches, of which there's 25 notches for a full cycle, and it's nice and lightly balanced. There's not really much effort required to use the scroll wheel at all. So the buttons themselves, left and right mouse button here, are very, very snappy. They've got a really nice feel to these buttons when you're going through them. They're a very, very quick response. There's quite a short reach on the clicks here. There's not a long travel, and I found them to be very, very responsive. Probably some of the better buttons, although I'm not happy with the size of them, but the response in these were probably some of the best ones I've used for a while. The front and back side buttons for me though weren't quite as good. They're a little bit spongy, there's a little bit of travel in them. I would have liked to have seen them to be a little bit more sharper. They're at a decent size though, and they're not angled too badly that you're going to slip off the side of them. The front one though for me, as I've said, was a little bit too much of a reach for me if I'm using a palm grip, which is what I use, or a hybrid palm grip. I would like to have seen those a little bit further back, although they are in the center of the mouse. So the cable on this mouse is probably one of the weaker bits of it. It's certainly not very flexible. It can push the mouse around quite easily here without even bending. The braided cable makes it quite stiff. Doesn't seem to snag though. It would definitely benefit from either a bungee or a power cable mod to give it extra flexibility on this cable. So on to some of the more exciting stuff here, the force required to push the mouse button here. I've took a measurement at the front, the middle and the back to give you an idea of how much force you're going to need to press this button, so you can compare these throughout the other mice I've been reviewing, which I'll put on my beardedbob.com website, which is still in a bit of a work process at the minute, but it'll be up and running with a table, so you can compare these for the mice that I've done. So I took 3 measurements per button. The front left one came in at 44 grams, 32 grams, and 42 grams. So an average here of about 40 grams, let's say. I assume the right one is going to give us the same readings here. Let me know if you want me to take those as well, which I probably will do in the next mouse, to be fair, because there might be some difference, but they should be very even. If not, they've got a bit of a problem, I guess. So the middle of the left one was 88 grams, 77 grams, and 82 grams, which gives us an average of about 82 grams. And then the rear of the left mouse button came in at 138 grams, 137 grams, and a final one of 145 grams, which gives us an average of about 140 grams pressure here to push it. So it's certainly a little bit lighter than some of the other ones, like the Wireless G Pro that I've done. That was like 237 grams for the rear, so it's not bad, but the front and middle are probably the same as most mice at the minute that I've tested, around the 40 gram mark. So I took the measurement of the scroll wheel. I found this to be a little bit difficult to press. I think it would have been nice to be a bit lighter. It's certainly not going to be easy to press it by mistake. And the results on this one came in at the first press of 217 grams, second press of 246 grams, and the third press of 236 grams, which gives us an average of around 230 grams. So moving on to the side buttons, the front side button came in at initial press of 93 grams, the second one came in at 118 grams, and the third one came in at 137 grams, and that gives us an average of around 120 grams. The final one, the rear side button, this came in at initial press of 101 grams, second press was 110 grams, and the third press was 117 grams, so perhaps a little bit lighter, although it's a little bit tricky to get those, and that's probably an average of about 110 grams. So moving on to the weight, this mouse is rated on the website at coming in at 67 grams. So I put it on my scales and it's 67 grams. So this has got to be one of the lightest mice I've tried, especially at this size. It's quite a significant size mouse for its weight, so it feels really good. It doesn't feel too light when you're gaming with it. Had some good times with it on Call of Duty, like I've said. The total weight of the mouse, if you put the braided cable on there, which comes in at 1.8 meters, and also has a thickness of 2.8 millimeters. But altogether, it comes in with the USB plug as well at 105 grams. So get on to the latency here. I've been using the same benchmarking tool as Rocket Jump Ninja here, so you can compare us to see if there's any differences between our reactions maybe, or if the website or our internet connection. And the latency here came in an average of 176 milliseconds, which to be fair seems to be pretty good. I think it's a light 10 milliseconds quicker than a Wireless G Pro did last week, but to be fair, they all seem to be around the same response rate and around that 170 to 180 milliseconds really. So nothing here outstanding. It was probably about the same as everything else. So let's get into the size in here. These are approximate measurements, so they might slightly differ here, but this is what I've picked up from it. And the length of the mouse comes in at 125.6 millimeters. The rear width comes in at 65.6 millimeters. The middle width comes in at 61.3 millimeters. The front width comes in at 65.1 millimeters, which gives it a slightly tapered edge inside here of about 3 or 4 millimeters. It's not significant, but it's certainly enough to help with the grip here. I do like the angle of this. It's certainly not a mouse that's going to slip out your hands like the Wireless G Pro. Carrying on with the dimensions here. The height on the front is 23.8 millimeters. The middle comes in at 39.4 millimeters, and the rear comes in at 33.6 millimeters. I thought I'd measure the front left and front right mouse buttons. Now they are both the same here, and they come in at 27 millimeters, but it was something that no one's ever told me before, is how wide are the buttons, and I found this to be quite wide. So you've got plenty of room there for your finger, given the average finger's about 8 millimeters, something like that, maybe 10, unless you've got really big fingers, or you've got really skinny fingers. So getting onto the software here, the last bit of this review. As I've said, the mouse doesn't have any software. It's plug and play. It'll work on Windows, Linux, Mac OS. But if you want to configure the, say, the thumb buttons, which I like to do, I don't like to leave them as page forward, page backward, which is the default. You can use some software called Xmouse buttons, which allows you to remap these buttons. This works in other mice as well that you can't necessarily program without any software. So it's worth looking at if you're using something else. The software I've been using for a while and is very good, and it allowed me here to reprogram these buttons to do whatever I like. You can do all the buttons and remap them. Fortunately, you can't change the DPI or poll rate, but if you want to change the button assignment, then use this piece of software. I'll put the links in the description, as I will do for everything else. So I hope you like this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me know if you want me to look at any other mice. Check out my other reviews of mice, and until the next one, I will see you again. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.